clear the camera, make it look a little spiffy. Let me try that again.
Just is the all-in-one workspace. We are a very small startup, so as of the model,
All
actually
right,
check everything
I like that.
about we work together as a team.
So, a few people said they liked my format the other day when I was watching a Jubilee video. So, I'm going to watch a Jubilee video again while I do this. And hopefully, people will like it. If not, I'm already offering you my Mia Copa. And since I have this on a horizontal view, I am going to read the comments from my desktop. That way, it'll be easier to follow than trying to look at it on my screen. If and when there are comments, I'm sure there will be a few. That's almost guaranteed at this point, which is a good thing. That's a good thing. That's not a bad thing. I'm not complaining. The the apprehension you hear in the laughter is about trolls, obviously. But other than that, I'm Gucci, Gucci, Gucci. Let me stop. Subscribe to this brother. Oh, I'm not. I thought I was. Okay. Pablo Hansen. Pablo Hansen. So last time I played the Jubilee, I got a bit of it copyrighted, but that's because I was showing both. I was listening to it and also showing snippet, um, a bit of the video as well. So I'm not going to do that this time. I'm just going to let you guys hear it, and that way it should be good with that. And if it gets whack, I'm going to move on to something else.
The debate show where fact-checking your opponent wins you the game. Freedom of speech is protecting freedom of speech that you hate.
Nope. Black kids that come from the wealthiest families commit the same amount of crime, or even more than, for example, white kids that come from like $30,000 median household income. Perfect. Get that one.
You want to bet $100?
Sure, I'll bet $100.
Okay.
Oh, hey, I'll find you. Yes.
I'm your host, Paris Rose, and today it's liberals versus conservatives. Let's meet the liberals.
Hey, I'm Mason, and I'm a progressive.
Hi, I'm Evan. I'm a leftist.
Hi, I'm Hunter, and I'm a No Kings progressive.
Hi, I'm Z, I'm progressive.
What the fuck is a No Kings progressive?
Versus conservatives. Let's meet the liberals.
Hey, I'm Mason, and I'm a progressive.
Hi, I'm Evan. I'm a leftist.
Hi, I'm Hunter, and I'm a No Kings progressive.
None of them are actually liberals. We need to stop putting everything on the left as liberals and everything on the right as conservatives.
I'm Micah, I'm a conservative.
I'm Jake. I'm a capitalist.
I'm Matt, I'm a classical conservative.
And I'm Dominique, and I'm a free market conservative. Players, the game is simple. If the other side says something false, hit your button, and our fact checkers will verify it live.
At least the conservatives are actually
Your team
conservatives.
gets a point. And if you're wrong, the other team gets a point.
Like, I'm a liberal, but I'm a classical liberal, which makes me conservative.
So, push it
With-
twice.
Because I'm a classical liberal, it actually puts me on the right, not on the left. So this is why
The first check
terminology
is,
matters.
whose policies are better for quality of life and affordability? Liberals or conservatives? Heads or tails? Heads.
Tails.
All right. Tails. Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Your time starts now.
Okay, so when I think about quality of life, I tend to first think about things like healthcare, right? Like you want to live a long time. So I want to first start by talking about affordability with our healthcare in this country. So I assume as a conservative, you're not a fan of Obamacare.
The Affordable Care Act did indeed not make healthcare affordable, but it did decrease the amount of uninsured individuals.
Which is a good thing, I would think, right?
Well, the idea of decreasing those who are uninsured is great, but the affordable part of the Affordable Care Act actually didn't make insurance more affordable. It actually doubled people's premiums. It doubled deductibles by 100+%.
So as I would say, I don't think Obamacare Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act went far enough, right? We can agree on that. I'm way more progressive than what the Affordable Care Act did.
So
But again, we're talking about affordability in terms of having healthcare cost less in this country. When people go to emergency rooms and they don't have preventative care, that means that we are paying more ultimately as a taxpayer. Is that what you want as a conservative?
no, but again, Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, it decreased network sizes, it decreased physicians within networks, and it hasn't actually produced better healthcare options for Americans. It's increased the cost for privatized health insurance,
You just admitted people
So
who are more
access.
insured.
being insured, but that insurance not covering what you need, or there being higher deductibles, doesn't
But
mean
what-
the outcome is better healthcare. It
But
just
what is
means-
better, right? Do you want them to just not be insured at all? Do you want there to be no caps, no
But did
insurance,
you not
nothing,
just
no
hear what I said?
regulation?
Deductibles have increased for families by 100%. So the cost has actually been absorbed by the American people.
She's
so I wouldn't
math
say that that's a
illiterate.
net
She's not
benefit
gonna
just
understand
because
what
the
you're saying.
number of uninsured decreased from 14% to 8%.
Where should the cost be absorbed?
Private health industry.
And how is that going to help? Isn't the private health industry literally the entire reason why we have these insane costs for things like insulin to begin with?
Yeah, I'm not a fan of big pharma. I think we should incentivize.
You literally just wait. You
No.
literally just
Health
said
insurance is
that.
not the same as pharmaceuticals.
You just said you just said that you want it to be more privatized.
Yeah, for health insurance.
But that doesn't make any sense if you care about affordability. Private
Okay,
insurance is the
but
reason
the
why our
Affordable
medication
Care
costs so
Act
much.
increased the family, like American families' cost of insurance by over 100%. So you didn't contend with, okay, so
So you-
so
so you're-
the American people should absorb 100% increase.
Well, actually, I want a
For-
Medicare for all system. Actually,
Okay, again, you
There we
can
go.
want that, but we're talking about cost of living and
yeah. Well, if you want
affordability.
affordability,
the
then you
premise
would be
of
for
the
Medicare
debate-
for all.
We're gonna move on from healthcare.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So cost
They
of
don't want to talk about healthcare because she knows she's going to lose. So let's talk about more affordability.
I didn't lose. You cannot contend with the fact that before the Affordable Care Act,
I already told you about that. Let's go.
No,
Move on.
but you didn't provide a
Affordability.
policy that would then correct that.
I
when
just
the
told you Medicare for all. I just gave you a
You
policy.
could say Medicare for all, but I just demonstrated how increasing public health care has increased the
So
cost
wait,
for
you
American families
want-
by 100%.
Thank you.
All right, Mason, I see you press your button. What would you like fact checked?
The debater specifically said that public investment is more expensive than the free market when it comes to overall national coverage.
It
I
is.
specifically was waiting for an affirmative claim that had nothing to do with the Affordable Care Act.
You
All right,
waited
let's
for me
fact check
to
it. Let's see
say-
what it says.
A wrong
Public.
statement, yes.
No, we've been talking about the Affordable Care Act this
Well,
entire
okay.
time.
Okay.
No, not the whole time. We were talking.
Yes,
We were talking
we
about
were.
The
insurance.
ACA is not public insurance. It's
Jubilee
an
is rage
individual
bait.
mandate, and it's more increased state funding.
All right, that's a valid fact check. So fact checkers, do your thing.
We're the ones.
Jeopardy music.
We do need some. All right, well, Dominique, you said that public investment is more expensive than free market. The fact checkers checked, and they said that was false. Public program administrative costs are lower than private insurance. Public programs run at about 2%, where private insurance costs are more expensive.
Uh-oh.
So I'm going to have you
She was
back to
wrong.
the podium.
So was I.
Matt Daily Weiler.
All right, Matt, we're going to start with you, and the time starts now.
All right, perfect. So I think when we're talking about affordability, looking at domestic migration is probably like an important metric. Seeing where people are leaving, where people are going. A big part of this has obviously been the housing crisis. In California specifically, I believe they built about 118,000 homes. In Atlanta itself, with 6 million people, they built even more homes than that. I'm not going to get the exact number, so I don't get like hit on with a specific. But yeah. But like more homes, obviously.
Okay.
And we also obviously see the largest net migration out of California, out of any other state. The number one reason is obviously housing. People are moving to conservative states like Texas, specifically going to places like Dallas for that. And the second reason, obviously, being general affordability.
I wouldn't move
so
to
people are not
Dallas,
able
though.
to afford
That's-
things in like major.
It's cheaper than
liberal
California, but
states
Dallas
like
is still
California.
expensive.
So when you talk about not being able to afford things, I think you are looking just at a very specific stat. You're looking at housing specifically, right?
That's one of the many different factors. I mean, there's consumption taxes, right? There's local taxes. There's mileage taxes, which have obviously been proposed. All of these things are aggressive taxes.
But the problem is,
Right.
is that we need to talk specifically about taxes. So the question really is, what are you getting for those taxes, right? So if I live
Right.
in New York City, okay, and I'm paying a certain tax rate, what I'm getting in return
Do
for
not-
that is
do not
better
marry a
education,
liberal white woman.
right? I'm
That's
getting,
who's talking.
I'm getting safer roads.
Your wife will be miserable, and I'm talking to the white
Jake, you
guys out
pressed
there
your
too,
button.
to my
What
white
would you like to
brothers.
fact check?
I'd
Don't
like to
marry
fact check
liberal
urban
white women.
education. New York does not have better education because of their taxes.
All right, fact checkers, do your thing.
Y'all need better music for the fact check.
Could have gotten so much more in.
All right, the verdict is in. Z, you claim that New York City has better education standards than red states because of taxes.
That's false.
The fact checkers have determined that to be false. New York City
Boom.
ranks middle percentile in education, not a leader of the pack among states.
Peace out, bitch.
We'll have you return to the podium.
I'm not gonna lie though. She can get clapped up.
Yeah, thank you.
She's a little redhead.
I denied your greatness.
She can get clapped up. She had some cheeks when she got up out that seat.
All right, so
She can get
before
clapped.
they were talking about education, they're actually talking about domestic migration to states like Florida.
Right.
When people move
Just
from
saying.
blue states to red states, primarily because of cost of living or
Ain't nothing
housing,
wrong with a
housing
milkshake.
costs and pandemic specifically, what you're also going to see
Vanilla
is people
milkshake.
continue to vote blue disproportionately compared to the people in the states they moved to,
So,
which is why states like Arizona have become swing states. It's because when we're talking about inflation, we're talking about jobs created, we're talking about unemployment, Democrat policies are better than Republican policies.
Okay, so it's interesting. You're saying that they're moving from states that have Democrat policies with Democrat legislators and Democrat electorates, and they're moving to states that have Republican policies, right? That have, for example, like Texas and Florida, obviously, no state income taxes. Why are they moving to states like that? That they're with more
Wait,
more
they have no
affordability,
state income
lower housing
taxes?
costs, all of those different things.
shit,
Like,
if I
why are
wasn't
we seeing
moving
those things?
overseas, I would definitely
The
give
housing cost is
Florida
real. When it comes to Texas versus California,
a
that's
look-see.
like
Part of affordability.
when it comes to affordability,
Texas,
about to get into it, property taxes are at
I still
much
wanna be
higher
close
in
to the
Texas
East
than they are in
Coast.
California. California's about 0.7%. In
Yep.
Texas, it's 1.6 to 1.7%.
Sure, that may be true. We're talking about housing costs, generally speaking. Purchasing a home is not the same thing as property taxes, right? Now, property taxes go into the general cost.
Housing costs includes property taxes because you're
Well,
paying for your housing once you own it.
I do understand that. Sure, but there's different property tax rates depending on
Yeah.
the state you're in, obviously. So I'm talking, generally speaking, are houses cheaper in conservative states?
To build housing, absolutely.
Okay, absolutely.
But they're
Have they
actually
built?
cheapest
Have they
in
built?
blue cities and red states.
Okay,
right.
great, but that's still under Republican government. That's still under
No,
Republican.
municipal regulations are much more important than state level regulations when it comes to building houses in most
Sure.
of these metro areas that
Yeah,
we're talking about.
I mean, you can
We have
say
the
see her
that.
hips from the
United
front.
States.
I do
Like
understand
most
that.
stuff
I do understand
ass so
those
fat, you can
obviously
see it from the
those
front.
things, but nevertheless,
she's a
if you
little
wanna move
vanilla
to
milkshake.
conservative states, which have obviously less taxation, generally speaking.
Oh, you
and
have to
they're
listen
able
to her
afford
talk?
better homes.
Again, that's
All of these
Clapped up
policies
all
are
day.
actually
referring to.
And also on top of that,
Sales tax.
they're able to afford wealth taxes and consumption taxes. For example, if you look at the Virginia legislators, they passed a bunch of different taxes. Were most of those consumption taxes? Yes or no?
I'm honestly not sure.
Okay, most of those things were consumption taxes. Are consumption taxes always regressive or progressive?
It will depend, but generally speaking, they're
No,
regressive.
they're necessarily regressive. If I go in and I buy a TV and that TV is $100, right, and the tax on that TV is $5, it does not account for me making $100,000 or you making $10 million a year, meaning it's necessarily regressive. Who is more likely in America to pass regressive tax policies in reference to mileage taxes, all sorts of different consumption taxes? And if you admit that they're regressive, who does that disproportionately affect?
When they're regressive, it is
Oh,
going to
cool.
disproportionately affect people who are on the lower
So
end
you're
of the
saying that
income
you're
bracket,
right,
but there
so-
are reasons for that because
you're
it
saying
can benefit
Democrats-
them in the aggregate, right?
Okay,
For
okay.
example,
Okay.
congestion pricing in New York,
Right.
that's to encourage people to use public transit and public transportation, which
Right.
Zoran Mamdani, Democratic mayor,
Right.
is spending infrastructure dollars to improve public transit.
Right.
That's what he ran on, that's what he's trying to do. And in doing that, that actually benefits people, makes
Interesting.
things more walkable, more livable relative to what it was
Interesting.
before.
Zoran Mamdani, in reference to transportation, right? The MTA actually is running on a $1 billion deficit, about a $1 billion deficit. He also proposed, obviously, decreasing like the bus fare, obviously, fast and free buses, correct?
Yes. that's-
Okay, is it true that after he took office, bus fares actually increased and the MTA proposed or actually announced bus fare increases?
Right now, they have just solved the budget deficit that was given to
That's
them
not
by
what I'm
Eric
asking.
Adams.
I'm asking-
Who was he supported by
Okay,
again?
just really let me debunk
Donald
the
Trump?
let me debunk the budget deficit. So Albany, which is a state like
Okay.
obviously the capital,
State capital.
they gave him $8 billion. 66% of the budget deficit was actually given to him by Albany. If you guys want to fact check that, please go
No,
ahead and do
that's
that.
true.
So
But
wait,
the
hold on,
issue
you
with
don't
that
balance
claim,
the budget.
does
Hold on,
New York
hold on.
City give more money
You
to
do not
Albany
balance-
or
you
less
do not
money to
balance.
Albany before,
Right, so-
after that
so-
than they did before?
Yeah, I think you're forgetting how like
So,
cities
hold on,
work.
yeah, actually,
Cities are generally, hold on for a second. Cities like New York, cities
Sure.
like Houston, cities like Los Angeles are going to produce a significant amount of like economic development and economic mobility. So of course they're going to give the state more than the state gives them. That's always how it works, right? Now, nevertheless, you said that he balanced the budget. You don't balance the budget by me basically handing the check and saying, hey,
Exactly.
your problem is solved. Zoran Mamdani was like,
I wish I
showing,
could do that.
the telescreen. He was like, oh, we're proposing.
Oh, I got
cutting
debt.
fund.
Let me
He
just
proposed
borrow
cutting
some
$1
money
billion
and
for
pay off
education,
that debt.
right? Hochul came in, and Hochul was basically like, hey, we'll give you $8 billion and we will solve your problem. That is not solving the budget or solving the deficit yourself. Furthermore, he promised passing free buses. They did not get that.
Yes. First off, Zoran Mamdani has been
Fact
mayor for
checkers,
less
please.
than a year. Secondarily, and more importantly, you can't
Right.
have it both ways.
It's already getting bad.
Is Governor Kathy Hochul a Republican or a Democrat?
Democrat.
She's a Democrat, right? So
Right.
she runs the state of New York, right? So if you're arguing that
They're both
New York
aligned.
City was relying on New York City, the economic hub of New York, and one of the economic hubs of the entire world, mind you, very important that it was relying on New York State and that New York State's policies were uplifting it, then you're arguing that Democratic policies were successfully preventing
Never said they were uplifting it.
successfully preventing potential decline of one of the most important economic hubs in the world.
Nope, never said they were uplifting
Did she or
it.
did
You
she
made the
not give
claim.
an $8 billion to New York?
That is what I just told you, which you didn't obviously know because you said that Zoran Mamdani balanced the budget. Did you or did you not say that Zoran Mamdani balanced the budget?
Yeah, he negotiated
Okay.
with how he
Okay,
got the money.
hold on,
That's balancing the budget, is it not?
No. Balancing
If you
the
make a
budget.
deal with
Balancing
someone,
the budget is not what the okay, hold on.
if you make a deal with
There was
someone,
there was a deal. So what concession did he give to the state government?
None.
Oh, so he didn't make a deal. He received free money from the state government. That's what happened.
yeah,
And he was like, I balanced the
because it's
budget.
important
By
for
the
New
way,
York's
you can also read there was plenty of different articles about this.
Matt said that New York City, that Mamdani got free money from the government, and I want to fact check that.
Okay, go ahead.
Everybody knows that the place to find
He's confident with his shit. He's like, go ahead. Go ahead, son.
When you don't use bounds, dry
Check
heat
that
can
shit,
be a
son.
real monster. I turn clothes into a magnet for lint, dust,
He's gonna walk the
and
ass
hair.
backwards after you
Bounds.
find that I'm
My
right.
friend's dryer heat stand
He's
makes your
not.
laundry fresh again.
I still like New York though, but I can't live there right now. Not with a Muslim
Because
socialist
a car
running
that
the
doesn't make
city.
you feel recognized is a car that stops short of amazing.
Who defunded the police, so you got criminals wilding out like it's the 90s. Nah, I don't need to see 90s type of violence. I'm a Gen Xer. I purposefully aged out of that nonsense.
The largest economic producer in New York City getting free money.
Yeah, I don't even think that's like a thing.
The state legislators gave
Yeah, the point of having an effective local government leader is working with the state legislator. That's the point, Thomas.
Yeah.
All right. So Matt, you claim that
You call him a
NYC
dumbass.
received free money from the government. The fact checkers checked, and the verdict is
False.
that is false.
I knew is the way he
New York
phrased
City
it.
did not receive free money. It received previously collected tax revenue from the state government that came with restrictions and requirements, including matching funds.
It was just the way it's because he said free. That's what
whatever.
the phrasing is going to get you every time.
us liberals were tricky, you know?
Jake, we're going to start with you, and the time
It's the phrasing.
starts now.
All right. Talking about affordability, I think you could talk about essentially any issue along the line.
Yeah.
When you allow for markets and freedom to reign, you are going to create systems where you have mutually beneficial trade.
That's right. And I
which
think that
creates
little
better
redhead
affordability.
on their
Or
team needs
versus
some
when you
freedom.
have things like the
She
state
needs to let
intervention
freedom
on,
reign.
say, Zoran Mondami's grocery stores, which he's proposed. This idea of using the state to control things, I think with near zero exceptions, makes the
I don't know who's in the
situation
chat room, but if
more
you're in the chat
and so I
room,
would ask you first, which specific
shout out to you
policy
guys.
do you believe
You
will
can
make
say
things
hello in the
better?
chat room if you
And
like.
maybe I'll agree. If you
Or
say
you can
like
just watch
remove
along
zoning,
with me.
I'm like, great, that's a
I'll shut up.
conservative thing too.
Well, I do agree with the removing zoning, but we should pick something we'll actually maybe argue
Exactly
over.
right.
I'm going to go specifically the actions of Lena Khan as the chair on when it comes to affordability during the Biden administration. For example, anti-monopoly practices, trying to break up the potential merger between Live Nation and Ticketmaster.
Yeah, so the problem with anti-monopoly practices is two things. One, they're almost always subjective as to what actually defines a monopoly, which is why you get very long court cases. If I have a control on all the computers, is a typewriter a substitute good? Is it a complementary good? How does that work on? And so you always have a situation where the state now has the ability to subjectively pressure and control other companies through these laws. And so even if they don't explicitly state it, versions like this are very similar things with FEC, SEC regulations, is how Trump is able to, say, pressure Kimmel, which I think was not a conservative thing and shouldn't have happened.
I would
It's
agree
how
with
the
you there.
Biden administration is able to do various things like trying to pressure companies to take down various facts, or maybe even not true facts, which is free speech, trying to pressure companies on social media to remove things.
Yep.
If they don't
They
explicitly
sure
state the
fucking did.
antitrust threat, the antitrust threat itself is the ability for the state to control companies or even just to sue them under subjective grounds.
Yeah, I'm
which can
against these
possibly put companies
antitrust
into the ground.
laws.
And so the problem with this is
They
it
go too
creates
far.
actually anti-competitive crony systems. And so in the short run, state always does this, where state has a very specific bending factor, where you say, look, right here, we made this thing better. And it makes everything else tiny bit worse. And the problem with these antitrust laws is it always makes everything a little bit worse.
That's not true, and I know this because both of us are YIMBYs. Let me give you a specific example.
The claim that antitrust laws almost always make everything a little bit worse.
Yeah, they were. I knew they were gonna get you on that one.
It's so subjective. What do you, like,
When you peddle and you cannot in this debate, they're hitting you with general. They're gonna they're gonna check every generality.
A bit worse.
Every time you every time you make a generality, they're gonna get you. You gotta highly qualify it.
Have a verdict, and they have said that that is false. There are 0 historical records reflecting this claim. So thank you, Jay. You can head to the podium.
Thank you.
Thank you. So it looks like all the liberals have pressed their button, and the only person who hasn't is Hunter. So we are going to switch you guys out. We'll have Micah start, and your time starts now.
Something in particular that I think is important is crime rates. Now, I do know the stat that I think it's red states have higher violent crime than blue states. But if you actually break that down,
Into the cities.
it's mostly caused from the large blue cities in those red states.
Okay, well, I think to address crime, you essentially need to address things like poverty. And a key aspect about poverty is something like wage growth. And according to the Economic Policy Institute, one of the single biggest suppressors of wage growth is the erosion of collective bargaining. And this is something that Republicans in particular have taken a part in, whether it be the Reagan administration or whether it be going back to the Taft-Hartley Act of the 1940s. The Trump administration also has fired and defunded the NLRB, which is meant to protect workers' ability to unionize. So Republican policy is damaging for something like wage growth, which would address the violent crime statistics that you brought up.
So then why don't we see Republican counties and cities on the top of those lists then?
It would depend on the specifics,
Okay.
but certain Republican counties, let's take for example Orange County. A lot of those areas are very wealthy. They're also very Republican. You would expect wealthier areas to
Is
not to have,
LA County not wealthy?
LA County broadly, but if you want to
Yeah.
look at more specific areas, obviously some parts of LA County are going to be wealthy, some of them are going to be not wealthy, and typically
Same with Orange
Oh,
County.
yeah, well, but if we even make it more localized, so for example, Newport Beach, Huntington Beach, these are predominantly more wealthy areas and they're more Republican areas. So it would make sense that wealthier, nicer areas are going to have less violent crime.
So then
But
are you
if
admitting
you-
then that Republican cities are wealthier than Democratic cities? Is
I
that what you're saying?
don't know that on net, but I think that would be it would be intuitive. It would intuitively make sense that wealthier people would vote in their economic interests, such as lowering taxes. That doesn't actually benefit the people. You want to talk about the 2017 Tax Cut and Jobs Act that Trump initiated? 81% of the corporate taxes went to stock buybacks. Less than 5% went to research and development.
Fact
tax
check that.
cuts aren't actually
Y'all
solving
need to
something
fact
like
check that
wage
one.
growth, which we want to enable.
Fact check it. There you go.
Matt, you press your button. All right. What claim would you like to fact check?
Yeah, the 85%. 81% of the tax cuts went to stock buybacks.
Corporate tax cuts.
Right.
All right. Fact checkers, do your thing.
Center for Budget and Policy Priorities, I believe is the organization.
Right. Yeah.
All right,
Can't tell them
Evan,
what
you
source
stated that 81% of corporate tax cuts from TCGA in 2017 went to stock buybacks. Our fact checkers checked,
I don't
and the
know.
verdict is that is false.
Let's go.
81% of corporate cuts from the TCGA in 2017 went to stock buybacks is not what the research actually says. So stated that way, it is false. It's closer to 40 to 50%.
Yeah, capitalism acting, baby. Go back.
You, Evan?
I knew I was gonna get to you.
The current score is 3-2 with liberals in the lead, and the time is up for this prompt. So we're going to move on to the next prompt.
Why does every website suddenly know everything about me? I searched one thing, one time, and now every ad is like, hey man, rough week? And don't even get me
Because you
started on this.
provide your
Why does every
information to
country
these
get better
social
shows
media.
than we do? That's why
When
I
you go on
started using
browsers, you
Proton
provide
VPN.
your
Proton
information.
VPN keeps your online activity private,
When you
so your
do
ISP,
internet
advertisers,
search
and random trackers
engines,
aren't following
you are
everything you
providing
do
your
online.
information.
It also comes with an integrated ad blocker that blocks annoying ads and trackers automatically, and with high-speed.
So we're gonna skip this ad because I don't give a fuck. I'm not getting paid.
VPN for sponsoring this portion of the episode. Now, let's get back to the video.
But shout out to
The
Jubilee.
next checkmate prompt is, which party is more bigoted and discriminatory? Republicans or Democrats?
Oh, this is gonna be a
The team
spicy
with
one.
the least amount of points will start this round. So, Micah, you will start, and your time starts now.
Awesome. Well, hopefully we can both agree that there are examples on both sides that we would say are bigoted and false, and we could point to individual examples. Do you
Yeah, I
agree?
mean,
Yeah.
historically or present day, I think that
Yeah.
you can point to examples of prejudice for sure.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Something that I think actually shows a little bit more of a trend on this when it comes to the left is just the amount of leftists that are okay with political violence. And I think that's really the ultimate form of bigotry and discrimination is when you're willing to commit violence towards someone else just because of their political views.
So just to confirm, are we debating the overall attitudes of movements that's political, or is it specifically the parties? Because I don't know any politician within
Well,
the
I mean, at
Democratic
least the
Party
prompt
that's
was
endorsed that.
at least the prompt, yeah, was the parties,
Right.
but obviously like leftists make up Democrats. So
Okay, well,
I mean,
let's talk
Here
about
for it.
party, because I'm not going to agree that we should be endorsing political violence, especially against like prominent conservatives.
Yeah.
I know you're referring to the big CK, rest in peace, rest his soul. For the parties themselves, like I'm really excited about this format because every time conservatives talk about trans issues, there seems to be this obfuscation from like empirical data into like this more fear-mongering mindset towards trans people. So now that we have fact checks that are here, would you say there's
How
like
did
an
you-
epidemic of trans shooters
how did you
like
pivot to
national figures like
trans?
Matt
What the-
Walsh or Michael
what?
Knowles have claimed?
Well, I think you're moving away from what I was saying to begin with.
Exactly.
But
Surely, yeah.
I wouldn't necessarily claim that.
Okay, cool. So we finally have conservatives, because they're being fact-checked, agree that that's not an actual issue.
Well,
The second
no,
thing
it's also actually just because I'm separate from
Okay.
like Knowles and Matt Walsh.
Well, I'm
I
just
don't
saying
hold to everything they hold to.
Right, but
But
I'm saying more
you've
so for-
ignored what I brought up in
specifically
the
for
beginning.
specifically for the Republican Party, like Donald Trump, for instance, made it one of his first priorities when getting back in office to specifically tackle the trans issue. Do you believe that was a culture war move, or that's indicative in reality and empirical data?
So again, you're just ignoring everything
So
that I
we're
brought
not
up
gonna
at the
address that.
beginning.
No,
No, because you don't
No,
want to
hold
address
on,
it
hold on,
because I
hold on,
think
everybody.
Oh, I see that's so unprecedented. But Dominique, did you press the button?
Yeah.
All right. What claim did you want fact checked?
Trump targeting trans people.
Day one executive order. Day one executive order.
What was the specific? Do you remember what he said?
Yeah, the Trump administration's policy of targeting trans children.
Children.
Or
Trans people.
trans people.
All right, fact checkers, do your thing.
Is there just someone in the background just on a laptop like, okay, let me get to work
All right, Mason,
right
you
now?
claim the Trump
They
administration
asked for the fact
targeted
checkers.
trans people on
Let me-
day one. Fact checkers have
Okay,
come to a
Google,
verdict, and they say it
ChatGPT,
is true.
Gemini,
The second
DeepSeek.
Trump administration
Grok.
made transgender policy an
What's
explicit
going on
and
here?
prominent early
Please stop.
priority. On day one, Trump signed an order to restore, quote, biological truth in federal policy, but ordered the DOJ to target supposed radical gender ideology. All right, so that's plus 1 point for the liberal. And they say it is true.
Damn.
The second
Oh,
Trump
yeah, true.
administration made transgender policy an explicit and prominent early priority. On day one, Trump signed an order to restore, quote, biological truth
He sure
in federal
did. I'm glad he
policy,
did.
but ordered the DOJ to target
I was
supposed
tired of 10
radical
years of
gender
being
ideology. All right,
gaslit
so
into
that's +1
saying
point
that men
for
are
the
women.
liberals. The current score is now 4-2. So Micah,
At least
thank
publicly
you, and
having
now
to
return the
agree with
plate.
that shit.
All right,
Now I'm
Dominic,
like,
we're gonna
fuck,
start with you.
I'm just gonna keep
And
calling
the
them what
clock
they are.
starts
You're a
now.
man.
Okay. So going
Baby.
back to the fact check that I got wrong.
It's
I
like,
think
okay,
just the
okay, you're a
talking
lady.
about
Well,
rights and
lady,
whose rights.
you need
So
to
for example, even like men and like biological men in
make
women's
sure you
sports.
get your,
So to me, I view that as protection of women's rights, not the taking away of trans rights.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I understand the perspective. I've heard it said a lot by
You need-
prominent conservatives. So my
you
argument
need to go
was
get
not
your
that
little cancer
constantly, like the
checks that,
military
you know,
after trans
guys
people,
get
even
down
though
there.
it did just classify
Even though you're a
pro-transgender
woman.
groups as anti-American that should like receive law enforcement going after them, but that's a whole different issue. I think that specifically when it comes to the targeting of trans people with legislation, so since 2023, we've seen an uptick in specific anti-trans laws. The reasoning for
Give
that,
examples and like what they're specific.
yeah, for sure. So like bathroom bills, like Nancy Mace made a big spectacle about trying to ban
Yeah,
Dorothy
because
Pride from using the Capitol Hill restroom.
People with dick should
Or
not
when you
be
see
in
specifically when it comes to like
bathrooms
gender
with
affirming care
with
restrictions in places
women
like Texas
and
and Florida,
girls.
even though gender
For
affirming
what ages?
well, first, the Indoctrinating Society has already stated, and as well as the American Medical Association,
Like if
that
you have these little
gender-affirming
gender neutral
medicalization care
bathrooms,
is
fine,
not
whatever, I
prescribed to
don't
anybody
care.
under the age of 12 years
We have
old.
gender
So
neutral
there's no medical
bathrooms at my
professional
alma
that has
mater when I
prescribed
went
that.
there for
Like, no cases.
for our
Yeah,
annual Maryland Day celebration. And it was the first time I ever went into a gender neutral bathroom where even the so even the so if you've never been to a
See,
gender
big
neutral
guy?
bathroom,
Oh, I
here's
say it.
here's the funny thing about it.
Lima, ball me.
You know how like you have private stalls for like, you know, the toilet. So gender neutral bathrooms also have private stalls for the johns as well. I actually like that. The fact that I can go so I actually like that aspect of gender neutral bathrooms because that means I can go pee in peace without worrying about somebody looking down at my dick like this.
Oh, hey, Cole.
Or, you know,
Remember, no direct eye contact.
women don't know this. So guys, when we go into the johns, we have one john away from the other person
I'm here with my
because
mama
we don't want to be
Peaches.
peeing
We're
right
talking
next to
about
someone
two
else.
most important things
Now,
in
if
life.
it's full, then yeah,
What are those
then
to you, mama?
you do what you got to do.
Family,
But
Family.
if there's space,
What's
you
another
take.
friends.
You always have one john in between. That's like
what would you say is
that's
the
like
most
guy
important
code.
thing in the kitchen?
Okay, that's bro code.
easy.
You
Flour,
never
seasoned
you
salt,
never go to the
and
john
garlic salt.
directly
Yeah,
adjacent to another
Mama
person
said
peeing.
loud.
You leave that space. Similar in the movie cinema, you give that
You can keep talking.
bro
Sorry.
code.
I was just
You
trying to
sit
make
one
the
space away from the other bro.
Okay, so I think there's like
Unless
a few
y'all
things
rock
here, right?
that
So
way.
in California, I think they have AB 1955, which encourages schools to allow adolescents to socially transition, and they don't have to relay that to the parents.
Right, so socially
Parental
transition.
rights,
So this is completely different than medicalization. Would you agree with that?
yes,
Okay.
insofar as
So
the
we're moving off
age of 12
medicalization because you see that argument.
I don't see the argument.
Should we
because
focus
even-
on medicalization then instead
Okay,
of going
but
to
we're
social
talking-
transition?
Okay, can we talk about both, and can I address the?
Sure. Which one would
age
you
as
like to
well?
talk about first?
Okay, so you're talking about the age of 12.
Yeah.
A lot of people haven't even finished puberty by the age of 12.
Correct, which is why it's not recommended by medical professionals.
Right, but even then, someone can't get a tattoo when they're 18. You can't smoke. You can't go to
True.
the army. So if you're gonna do it irreversible, so let's say from 12 to 18, you can
So
make that.
what are the
decision.
requirements, and I'd love to hear your interpretation of this. What are the requirements for somebody to receive gender affirming care in this country?
I'm assuming that is a state by state.
Right. Well, let's say like California, you'd say that's probably the most lenient when it comes to gender affirming care.
You seem to know so much. Why don't you tell me how?
I do know a lot. because
Yeah,
I think this
walk
is an
me
important
through it.
issue.
Walk
Okay,
me
so
through
there's a couple things that you have to go through before you're able to get
She's-
authorized for medical
she's
gender
cute
affirming
too.
care.
She don't have the
first one
cheeks
is
that the
excessive,
ginger chick.
analysis
I'm
between
just saying.
healthcare providers and parental consent. That's number one.
Ginger cheeks
Number
can
two,
get.
it's the age. It's age gated. So like I said, 12 years old, nobody's getting prescribed that below that
The
age.
conservative girl,
And
she
three,
can.
it's
She
the
can.
stage of puberty.
Well,
Stage
let me
of
wait till she
So
stands
just
up.
like you mentioned, everyone goes through puberty at different times. Some people.
All right, I see you pushed your button, Micah. What would you like to fact check?
That parental consent is one of the requirements for gender affirming care. Gender affirming care.
Oh, there should say exceptions if you don't have parents. Like.
We're talking about.
Don't try to hedge now, son.
Yeah, because he said it.
Don't try to hedge
When they're
now.
over 18? No, I said no. Here's what's specific.
After you call someone else a dumbass
He
for
said
after they got
requirement,
fact checked.
and then
Nah,
he
don't try to
started
hedge
listing
now.
out different requirements, and in that he said parental consent.
Correct.
All right, Mason, you stated that parental consent is a requirement for gender affirming care in California. The fact checkers checked, and that is true.
Thank you.
In the state of California, parents do need to provide informed consent to a doctor for a minor to begin receiving gender affirming care. The score is currently 5-2, with liberals still in the lead. Thank you, Dominique, but we're going to have you return to the podium.
All right, now she getting it. Let me see. Damn it. They cut it off. She's kind of slim fit though, but you know what? She can still.
Matt, you'll start, and the clock starts now.
Hello, Matthew. Hello. So I think when we're looking at discrimination, obviously, like
But the
racial
ginger,
discrimination
she
is like an
can-
important factor in most of this country.
Yeah, so we're moving away from the trans stuff.
It's just, yeah, just for a second. Yeah, I'm not conceding something I didn't argue. That was
But
what I argued.
that's a very like
That's not
topic
what
that you
I'm
really
arguing.
don't.
Hold on, just let me finish what I was going to say.
Conservatives don't
So
have
in
empirical
reference to
data on
discrimination,
that.
just hold on. Equal Protection Clause was
Yeah.
what the Civil Rights Act of 1965, specifically Title VII, was based off of,
Mhm.
right? That all people in this country be treated equally, and that federal law should prohibit any racial discrimination when it comes to job hiring, anything in reference to just any sort of field. Now, in reference to the American Medical Association specifically, in reference to the MCAT scores, people that are black, people that are specifically of Hispanic race, for example, or Hispanic ethnicity, you could say, can indeed get into medical school with lower, on average, MCAT scores. That is an objective fact that we still measure, even after the Supreme Court ruling in 2023. And so that is going to be an instance of discrimination. For example, if like black people, right, had to get like higher MCAT scores on average to get into certain universities, that would be looked at as discrimination or as bigoted. That is something that Democrats have promoted because obviously Republicans are not advocating for affirmative action or any sort of policy in reference to that.
So for me, I think that affirmative action is absolutely a nuanced issue. I think that you can talk about the reasons for inequitable admissions and making sure that you're allowing everybody to come to the table with equal footing. But I also understand, the argument that there are some people that are disenfranchised because of that, like Asian Americans when they apply. So I'm not here specifically wholeheartedly to advocate for affirmative action. But if you want to talk
Is
about
it discriminatory?
yeah, I think that there
Okay,
could
there
be
we
an
go.
argument
So
for affirmative action being discriminatory.
Okay, there you go. Well, that's a Democrat,
Right.
so, like proposed
But
policy that
would
is
you-
discriminatory towards like whites.
But I don't think that in itself means that the Democratic Party overwhelmingly is more discriminatory versus the Republican Party, who specifically targets vulnerable groups, like
Okay.
trans people. If you want to talk about trans stuff, I'm sure you're.
I mean, you already mentioned like trans stuff, but let me.
So you wanna move
I
away
want to talk
from
about
it,
the
right?
racial part.
Let's
I'm
do it.
black.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
the press person here. So, just in reference to the like racial aspects of certain things, like what is the main reason, for example, Democrats say that like black people on average commit more crimes than whites?
So we typically see communities that have higher homicide rates also correlate with things like communities who were redlined through federal policy, for communities that also were excluded from the GI Bill,
Right.
from communities who have had decades and decades of divestment from public infrastructure.
Right.
So there seems to be a heavy correlation between poverty and crime.
So socioeconomic factors, right?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So why is it that even after we account for socioeconomic factors, Hispanics and blacks still commit a disproportionate crime in reference to white people?
What about with Asian people? You'd say Asians commit less crime, right?
Yeah,
That's
Asian,
total.
East Asian specifically, because Asians is a broad term.
Right.
I don't want to use the term Asians
That's
because
great.
it lumps in different groups, and that's just
Look at this
not
guy.
even
He
what we
came
do.
prepared. Yeah,
Right,
because
so
Laotian
East
people,
Asians.
Cambodian people,
Right, yeah, like
yeah, Southeast
Right.
commit
This is
literally at the same
I'm
level.
glad that we
as
agree.
Latino and
Yeah,
Black communities.
I'm glad that we
Yeah.
agree that hate speech generalization
But
is
why?
not good.
But-
And this
but-
is why we have to have like a
Yeah.
more right. So my explanation for this would be cultural reasons also, and like
So
cultural and
Laotian,
familial- Hold
you're
on for a
saying-
second. Hold on for a second.
Yes,
Hold on
go
for a second. So cultural and familial reasons, I think, is the reason why there may be a higher homicide rate, for example, amongst black people or Hispanic people than, for example, obviously like white people. Because what we do find, and you guys can all fact check this as well, is even after accounting for socioeconomic
You're
factors,
talking
for
to me
example-
right here, buddy.
Right,
You're talking
right.
to me.
You
So let's
and your
focus.
whole team, I want them to fact check me on this.
Yeah.
So
Can I
even
explain this
after we
real
account, like for example,
I have to give your team a chance to get points, my dude. You guys are so far behind.
Let him finish
Okay.
his point. Let him finish
Okay.
his point.
Oh, Matt.
Right. So, for example, I think I saw a data
This dude is a
analysis that
dick.
even black kids that come from the wealthiest families, right, still commit just almost the same amount of crime, or even more, for example, than, for example,
That's how you
white
know
kids
white
that
people
come
are
from, like $30,000
liberals are
median household
racist
income.
as fuck.
Perfect. Get that one.
They love
Sorry,
black.
Evan, I see you push your button.
They
Which claim would
love
you like
black
fact checked?
people
That
until they
black
realize they're
kids
not
from wealthy
Democrats.
neighborhoods commit as much or if not more
Then they
violent crime than
talk
kids
about black
from
people
sub 30K
The way you would hear
households
like a
that are white-
freaking
that are white. Yeah.
All right. Fact checkers,
stormtrooper
do their thing.
I didn't even think
with
there was-
neo-Nazi paraphernalia in the social media would talk about black people.
Is that the highest
When they realize this black person ain't a Democrat, these liberals go off.
less crime than the lowest decile of whites?
So Matt, you claim that black kids from wealthy families commit as much or more crime than poor white families. The verdict is in, and that is false.
Good try. That's not false, but
There is no data. Wait for it. There's no data to directly support this claim. It is overly broad and is not backed by data.
overly broad and not backed by
we
data.
don't have- we don't have time
I bet you it could take me 10 seconds to find the source. It's just too inflammatory for them.
Reddit.com.
Okay, we can check after the show.
Yeah,
Should've
it's
said
not
arrest or
they're not gonna admit that.
And even then, it might still be wrong.
You want to bet $100 after the show? You won't find
Sure,
it.
I'll bet $100.
Okay,
Oh,
bet.
yeah.
Oh.
Thanks, Austin.
$100.
Wait, you said you have $100 though?
Yeah.
Okay,
I'll
we'll do
give
it.
you $100.
I mean, they're not gonna admit it just because it's too inflammatory.
You said you can find it 10 seconds after the show.
Straight TV.
So I want to start with, I think you admitted earlier that you do think one of the major positions of the Democratic Party is discrimination.
Sure.
And that you believe that they're just less discriminatory because of other things Republicans do?
So I think if we're looking at metrics, right, we should probably balance which party is intentionally.
Are we
going
not
after
going to?
certain people.
Are we not going to
I've heard
address
from some
how
of the
leftists have
debaters
become
that a
completely?
big example of evidence of why
anti-Semitic.
the Democrats are more discriminatory are these leftists online that make fun of political creators that died.
That's one example. The example I gave.
Well,
just
that's not the
now,
Democratic
which
Party in
that you
general.
admitted to
Sure.
was them going after white and Asian students in discrimination with the practices because there's a select number of seats. And so if you prioritize seats to one
How
group,
they've allowed,
you
how
have
they
to, by
allow
definition,
black
remove them from
immigrants
that group.
to
Sure.
And you don't
take the
think that makes them
resources
more
of foundation of
No,
black
because
Americans.
you want to go after the Republicans now?
They
Yeah, we can do
definitely
that,
not going to hit on
Yeah.
that.
So
one. No one's gonna hit on
another
that
thing
one.
about this format is
I would like
if
to
you
see
keep
that fact
pressing
check.
one issue that I'm conceding to, you're going to lose time to actually get points,
you gotta
which is
qualify
not
it.
good for your team.
Claim.
So if you
Yeah,
want
I'm
to
more
talk about,
concerned about truth than about the points.
So
The
it's
points
not
are fun.
overly broad.
I want to
Well,
like.
yeah, I'm just concerned about truth too.
I'm
So
with
do you want to talk about the trans issue?
We can
Because
talk
nobody
transition
has
as well.
got.
Yeah, and we have to weigh these examples against each other, but absolutely,
Let's
talk
do
about
it.
any issue.
So is the Republican Party intentionally discriminated against trans people?
So discriminating against trans people, it depends what you mean by discrimination, and what you mean by trans.
What
people.
would you say? Yes or no?
I do not believe that the Republican Party is intentionally discriminating against trans people because I don't believe that a person who is claiming to be trans actually is trans.
So there's no such thing as gender identity or trans identity, right?
I believe people identify that way.
But you're saying that's not congruent in reality.
Yeah,
Like there's no empirical data or empirical science that backs up gender
There
identity.
is empirical status.
Oh, wait. I thought you cared about truth.
No, you
Wait.
cannot cut me off. I'm about to
Go ahead.
describe how it's
I just thought you cared about truth.
I do, and if you care about truth too, you won't cut me off
Yes,
like
sir.
that.
Truth.
Okay.
Truth nuke.
Okay.
What a douche.
There is some data created
You
by
can tell this
gender
dude never
studies
been
and the
punched
gender studies
before.
affiliated programs, which try to suggest
People who cut people off like that
the empirical
have never been
system
punched
of
in the
actual
shows.
gender of male and female does not support these ideas, despite the fact that there is some evidence produced by organizations which have the intention of claiming. Yes, I call on you.
so
Go
what-
ahead and speak.
What is the empirical system of male and female that you referred to?
The empirical systems of
You
male
said
and
the
female?
empirical system of male and female. That's what
Yeah.
you said. What can you explain what that is?
Yeah, so we want to talk about like what empiricism is versus rationality. And so like the idea of what makes something empirical would be about collecting evidence, either visual
Right.
or
And
primarily
so-
through either the scientific or the historical method.
Right. So what would you say the scientific consensus is on gender in America?
Oh, the majority of gender scientists believe that you can change your gender or that you could be a gender that is not
Let's
what
move from
it
gender
says.
science. Let's
And
talk
those
about
people
let's
are
talk
not
about medicine.
right.
Let's talk about the American Medical Association. Let's talk about the American Psychiatric Association.
Yeah, these are politically minded organizations.
Exactly.
I will agree with you that they say that.
So they're not
and I
backed in
think
science.
they're wrong.
All right, I see. Z, you pushed your button.
I did.
Politically
All right,
minded.
Which claim would you like to fact check?
He said that the American Medical Association is a
Politically minded.
Politically
minded organization.
How do you?
You feel like they're politically biased.
Yes. Politically minded, and maybe I should have said biased.
What it sounds like is politically motivated.
Although politically motivated.
Politically
Yeah,
motivated
two
should be
different things,
is better
unfortunately.
phrasing.
I think they're the same. That's what I meant by minded.
All right, Jake,
Politically
you stated the
motivated.
American Medical Association is a politically minded organization. The fact checkers checked, and the verdict is that is a true claim. The American Medical Association has a political action committee and engages in political advocacy, giving to both political sides of the aisle.
Right.
Wait, on both.
On a technicality.
He did say political and not partisan. He wanted technicality, but he did win.
The current score is 6-3, with liberals still in the lead. Jake, since you were correct, Mason, you'll have to head back to the podium.
Good talking to you.
Sorry, bro.
Hey, Ginger Cheeks is getting back.
Look at his shirt.
Oh,
Show
That's
the
right.
audience.
we got Charlie Kirk in the building. Okay. Z, we'll start with you, and your time starts now.
She didn't like that.
Well, since we're
That
talking
was
about
very
picture, I see
subtle,
that you
but
have
she
a
does
shirt that
not
says, I
like
am
it.
Charlie Kirk.
Mhm.
First of all, I want to say that's offensive. Charlie Kirk actually called me the teenage Charlie Kirk before he died, so I'm more Charlie
Welcome.
Kirk. I'm more Charlie Kirk than
I
you
love
are.
that.
But
Yeah, okay.
in fact, now we're speaking about this. Let's
You should
actually
try to vote like him.
let's actually talk about Charlie Kirk, okay? So when we talk about bigotry, obviously Charlie Kirk comes up a lot, right? So, and I want to speak specifically about freedom of speech because, like, Charlie Kirk, this was like the main point
That was
that
his
he
whole
stood
thing.
for, right? So, how do you feel about after Charlie Kirk was assassinated, and you know, you were talking earlier about how leftists were talking about all of those things that were you guys didn't like on the right? They said a lot of things that
we
were
didn't
you
like
found
you guys
offensive. I don't like
celebrating murder.
wait, you guys.
You as in the royal you. I was referring to people on the internet who are leftists who decided to celebrate
I'm not a
the
leftist.
murder. Again, you doesn't have to be the person I'm talking to.
You said you guys.
Can be, yeah, I'm talking to a crowd and I say you guys, and one person in the crowd says I wasn't that. We're talking semantics now. Please talk
So
politics.
okay, so you're saying that the majority of Democrats online.
No.
Okay, so then
I
what?
said-
So when you say leftists celebrated Charlie
I
Kirk's
said
murder,
some of them celebrated Charlie Kirk's murder.
If
When
you are
actually-
progressive, you are
Okay,
leftist
some
by
of them-
definition.
Sure, some of
You were
them
trying to use a
celebrated
very
Charlie Kirk's
nuanced
murder. Okay, do you think those people should have been
version of
fired, forfeited?
leftist, which
Do you think
falls
we should
to
be fired for
something
celebrating
Yes.
murder?
more
Or is it what kind
extreme
of
than
job they're
progressive.
Okay.
But leftist
Who
can
should
be
be
an
fired?
umbrella
So, I mean, if
term
you're a
that
teacher who celebrates murder, you
covers
probably shouldn't be employed by the
everyone
government anymore to
politically on
teach
the
kids.
left.
Is it not freedom of
So
speech?
you're being disingenuous.
It is. It depends on what you mean by freedom of speech. If it's an incitement to violence,
No, just answer the question. Is it or not freedom of speech? That's a yes or no question.
it's not. I can't get a yes or no answer to that question. I'm sorry. No, politics is not a yes.
Yes,
or no
no, it is a
space.
yes or no
If
question.
you
Either
wanna
it's
talk
for
about-
either it's for freedom of speech or it's not for
I
freedom
am
of speech.
always pro
No,
freedom of
this is the
speech,
problem with
but the
your side is that this is
specification
what
of
you
what?
guys do.
Oh, the problem is that we're
This
nuanced.
is, no,
Oh my
it's
God.
not that you're nuanced.
Got me.
It's
Caught
that
me
you don't
nuanced
no,
right
because
here.
it's that you don't want to say the truth. You know that it was wrong that they got fired. You know
If
that.
you are actually
You know that.
No, it's not. That's not freedom of
Democrats
speech.
want to talk
Freedom
in
of speech.
general, Republicans want to talk in nuance.
Freedom of speech refers to the government not punishing you for your thoughts and beliefs and so forth. It has nothing to do with private
Unfortunately for you,
private
that is not
business.
the definition of
If you
freedom
work
of
for a
speech.
private business,
So
they
it
can
doesn't
fire you
matter
for what you
what
say.
you care about. You didn't like
In the
fact
state
that
of
people said that
Maryland,
about Charlie
you can
Kirk,
be
and I
fired
didn't either. In fact, I was a
without
big fan
an
of
employer
Charlie Kirk
giving
in the
reason
sense
for
of
them
he was a
firing you.
political operative that
And
was a
I'm
good
pretty sure
political
that's in
operative.
other states
Doesn't mean
as
I
well.
agree with him what he did.
So,
I did not like the fact that Charlie
Doesn't
Kirk was
violate your
murdered.
freedom of
I'm
speech.
glad you
It
don't like that.
doesn't
Thank you.
matter. Okay, it doesn't matter what you like or dislike. Freedom of speech is protecting freedom of speech that you hate. Okay, that's what it is. That's the United States of America.
No, that's not exactly what it means. It entails that, but that's not what it
We can go
means.
back.
I see you press your button.
How's that
Claim,
false?
hold on now. Which claim would you like to fact check?
That freedom of speech is protecting freedom of speech that you hate.
Okay.
I'm fact checking that because the First Amendment specifically references speech in reference to Congress shall not oblige. It's specifically in reference to how the government is involved in regulating other people's speech.
We'll let the
Exactly.
fact checkers do their
Exactly.
job. So fact checkers, let us know.
Yeah, we didn't get into violent speech. We didn't get into anything yet with Charlie Kirk.
So Z, you claim that freedom of speech is protecting speech that you hate. The fact checkers have come to a verdict and is
Oh, and they drop a commercial.
Luxury laundry scent beads
Great.
and smell unstoppable.
As a content creator, that's a great place to drop a commercial because that way people can
I think CSU is the right fit
Be-
for me
be-
because
be
they
hooked.
work
Like, wow, I gotta see what-
some odd year old college student.
I gotta see what
working,
that- what
active
the
in my
verdict
church,
is.
active with
But
my
as someone
kids,
watching
and
it, it's like,
and
oh,
they gave me
but-
the opportunity to work school into
So.
my crazy lifestyle.
The world's only tactical leggings with belt loops and real pockets.
Tactical
Built for women who
leggings?
don't just run errands, they run.
you can get
True.
tactically clapped up.
the
too.
First Amendment of the Constitution specifically protects freedom of speech, including opposing views. The fact
Sorry, I
checkers
talked through
have come to a verdict and is true. The First Amendment of the Constitution specifically protects freedom of speech, including opposing views.
Voltaire.
No, that's not even what it meant. No.
Oh,
Go
not
to Schneider.
nuclear.
That's
He's
not
gonna
what
go
it meant.
nuclear.
I disagree with what you say, but I defended the natural right to say it.
Congress
Voltaire.
might have right.
Voltaire is
Government's involvement.
They were absolutely citing him, though.
Change
They wrote-
sides, you're not going to have this
Oh,
problem.
you're an
What?
originalist.
Yes, I am. And that's why I hate Clarence Thomas.
All the conservatives have been fact-checked out of this
Wait,
round.
he said he
We're
hates
gonna-
what? What did he say he hates?
Government's involvement.
They were absolutely citing him, though.
Change
They wrote-
sides, you're not going to have this
Oh,
problem.
you're an
What?
originalist.
Yes, I am. And that's why I hate Clarence Thomas.
All the conservatives have been fact-checked
Oh.
out of this round, so we're going to move on to the next round.
That's what he said.
The final
He hates
checkmate
Clarence
round is
Thomas.
whose policies better protect constitutional rights, liberals or conservatives? The current score is
In the
7-3
current
with
climate,
Lucas in the lead.
conservatives,
We are going to start
which
with
is
Micah,
completely
and your time starts now.
crazy from 30 years ago when I
well, I think
was.
there's a lot of different things that we could get into.
30 years ago,
where
it definitely would
conservatives are
have been
better
liberals,
with
but
constitutional
the
rights.
liberals today are not the liberals
Something
of
that's really
the
important to me
1995,
is abortion, and I think the unborn does have a
A
constitutional
liberal
right
of 1995
interpreted,
would be a moderate or
to a
conservative
right
today,
to life, and currently we do not protect that
which
in
is
the
why
United
I
States,
consider
and so
myself a
that's
classical
huge
liberal,
thing.
which is someone
For me,
who
I
holds
think
liberal
when you
views
look
but
at the
is
Second
on the
Amendment,
political right.
Republicans are much better on this issue. Voter ID laws, I could go on and on.
Look, voter ID law is not required in the Constitution. On the first part,
Sure.
states are allowed to regulate their elections. We're talking not federal imposition. For example, Donald Trump's attempt to use the U.S. Postal Service to try to stop states from regulating their own elections is a constitutional violation. But on the other point, Second Amendment, obviously we got to talk about the well-regulated militia. And with abortion rights, are you arguing that someone, because the U.S. currently has birthright citizenship, which is enshrined in the Constitution,
The federal government cannot.
does someone become a citizen at the moment of conception? And should that be protected? So if someone is undocumented, for example, and they conceive in the United States, should they be prevented from being deported
Well, I'm
because
pretty
they
sure
have
the
a
14th
citizen in their body?
I think the 14th Amendment specifies that persons are owed these rights, correct?
I mean, that sounds correct to me.
Yeah. So I would say that the unborn are persons.
Okay, so
Yeah.
you are against deporting pregnant, undocumented women because they have a citizen in their belly if they
Well,
conceive
that
on
that
US
I
soil.
think we go into what was the
No, that's a
intention.
yes or no question. If they are a citizen,
No.
if they deserve
Hold on,
protection
can
at
you
the
let me
moment of
finish?
conception,
Can you let me-
then they would be a citizen at the moment of conception. Should they be deported, yes or no?
Okay, you can't just ask yes or no questions and then not let me answer. So
There are two outcomes, either they're deported or not deported. It's a yes or no question.
if you're not going to let me answer, then
I mean,
why are you
you
even
can
here?
give an answer, but I just don't want you to waffle
Yeah.
about it.
All right, let him answer. Micah, answer, please.
I could agree with you in the fact that, oh yeah, if I agree with that interpretation of the 14th Amendment, then yeah, illegal immigrants that do have a child in their womb, yeah, that they would get citizenship. That's irrelevant to the question of whether the unborn are persons. Does that make sense?
Sure, but the question is about constitutional rights.
Right,
And there's
and so
not
that's what I'm saying.
in the Constitution, it does not like lay out that life begins at conception. Like there's no
No,
theological
course
claim
not.
in the Constitution.
No,
So we're talking about constitutional rights, and I'm talking about birthright citizenship, which is a constitutional right,
Well-
not when life begins.
Well, but when life begins is actually crucial to determine
Okay,
when
sure.
persons get rights.
Let's do this out, yeah.
Yeah. So the unborn are human
And
beings. They are
for people
human
who might
persons
ask, what are these
from the
bags
moment of
in
conception.
background?
There's no
So this
difference
is my bug out
between
bag.
adult me and embryo me that would justify
But it's
putting me in,
deceptively looks like just a regular
claim. It's not
sports
one that you can prove or
backpack.
disprove. This is you're effectively
This
making
is
you're making a
just
theological
my
argument.
old
It's not really-
school
this
I
is
never
relevant to
mentioned
the
theology
backpack,
once. I mean, the science of embryology is
from
very
school.
Yeah,
clear.
let's talk about the Constitution specifically, right?
Yes.
Let's talk
Not
about,
when
for
I was in
example,
school, because
let's
when I was in
talk
school, I
about
used to always
let's talk
wear
about
a
what's
satchel
happening in
instead,
right?
so I just thought it
So
looked
when
cooler.
we're talking
That's
about
actually on the
we're
opposite
having
side
a
of
due
me, but you
process
can't
right
see it
strict.
on
In some
screen.
places sent to a foreign prison.
And it's not
in El
the one I had
Salvador,
at school either,
President
because
Bukele,
that
who's a
deteriorated.
dictator, overseeing
This just
Cuba,
has a bunch of
which
like
is
vintage
very
school
specifically
supplies in
a
it, as well as
prison
stuff that I
where
had
they claim
from
that you will not
school,
leave alive. That is
from
the
my
claim
time
of El
in
Salvador's
undergrad,
government.
college.
It is a Kumar Grego Garcia there,
And this
violation of
is
due
just a
process of being
Batman stuff full of a bunch of like Batman and other superhero
Bukele, the
collectible
president of
stuff.
El Salvador, is an explicit dictator. Yep.
All right.
Yeah, I didn't say
Fact
explicit.
checkers,
You did say that.
do your
I
job.
just said dictator. I said dictator. I didn't say explicit. Yeah.
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 Explicit.
Oh, yeah.
I want to.
Whenever you hit a generality, they gonna get you.
So there's
Wait, what the fuck? Okay. It's funny, like they like to show all the drama going on to make it more exciting because apparently the fact checker is bouncing. I'm gonna rewind that because I was
the
talking
president
through
of
that
El
shit.
Salvador
Sorry,
is an
I talked too much.
explicit dictator. Yep.
it's your excuse.
All right.
Yeah, I didn't say
Fact
explicit.
checkers,
You did say that.
do your
I
job.
just said dictator. I said dictator. I
But
didn't say explicit. Yeah.
yeah, you got
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Explicit.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I want to. So there's
What happened?
What happened?
Sorry, what happened?
So the director is getting into it with the fucking fact checker. The director is saying you cannot editorialize the fact checking. And the fact checker is like, all right, I'm just gonna walk off set. And he's like, all right, well you can bounce. Yo, that's crazy. So this is why people got mad at the fact checking that Facebook was doing. You guys remember this shit? They stopped doing this like 5-6 years ago, but people get mad because the fact checking was biased. Here's the thing, and I'm gonna get back to the video. Fact checking will always have bias because of the very nature of what it's doing. It's something we learned in philosophy, which should also be taught. It is taught in some science, particularly. Well, I would say I know it's particularly taught in the behavioral science. Whether it's taught in social science depends on the social science, but particularly in behavioral science, this is taught, and it's taught in analytic philosophy. Not all philosophy, but analytic philosophy specifically. That there's always there's always value latents in data. To say that data is always value laden is to say that you don't collect facts or data within a social vacuum. The things that you observe will always require some sort of interpretation. So that is what's called the value latentness of data.
What's true?
That he's a dictator?
Yeah, that's what she said.
Let me go back.
I just said dictator. I said dictator. I didn't say explicit. Yeah.
Yeah, you got
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Explicit.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I want to. So there's
What happened?
What happened?
Sorry, what happened? What's true?
That he's a dictator?
Yeah, that's what she said.
They're yelling criminals.
So the fact checker left because she wasn't allowed to give a true rating.
So in order to maintain the integrity of the show, one of the fact checkers was removed. Damn.
Plain.
So the fact checkers are just supposed to stay silent and not make reactions and just do their job.
Yeah.
They're not supposed to be.
Are they going to leave that?
Why do you think that's good TV?
Well, I think that
It is good TV.
and I think that's also more honest because a fact checker left on set. That's important. The audience when it wants to know the minds of the
I agree. I think it should be in the cut.
Right.
All right, Hunter, you claim the president of El Salvador is a dictator. The fact checkers have come to a verdict, and that is false.
It is false. And I'll tell you another thing. I was literally just talking about this with my cousin earlier. That the current president of El Salvador, because of his harsh policies towards criminals and gang and gang members in El Salvador, he's actually made it safe for tourists to come there again. That's not he's not being a dictator. He's just enforcing strict laws. the funny thing is, no one would say uh, the president of Singapore is a dictator because he enforces harsh laws over there. Do people like? Do people know how strict the Singapore is? One of, if not the most safest countries in the world, at least since looking back at like 2024 or 2025. um, but they have some of the strictest laws ever. Like, do you know that uh, drug offenses over there carry some drug offenses over there carry a death penalty? Okay, minor things can get you publicly caned. Remember the little white kid that was showing off, doing dumb shit, and the Singapore police arrested him, and then or they wanted to arrest him, and uh, he ran to the U.S. embassy. The U.S. embassy said, "Nope, he broke your law. he's subject to your to your legal system." And so he was convicted and publicly caned, just like a Singaporean citizen was. But again, no one talks about no one. Well, there are some people in Singapore that secretly dislike how the legal system is there, but most people will not publicly proffer those opinions unless they're currently outside of Singapore to make those disagreements known. Uh, but yet you don't hear anyone saying Singapore is a dictatorship. This man is cleaning up a country that was known to be like one of the most hostile places in North America. And that's saying a lot because Latin America is pretty fucked up. Let's be honest. But it was one of the worst places. So many people. There's a huge Salvadoran um, displacement, you know, across North and South America because they were fleeing that country. The gang, all the crime from gangs and drugs, sheer murder. This is why they were making such a big issue of that MS-16 guy in Maryland, calling him the Maryland Man, being sent back there because there was a court order preventing him from being sent back there because he has enemies there. Why does he have enemies there? Again, because he's a fucking MS-13. They didn't want to. Liberals didn't want to admit that. But anyway, let's rock on.
Classification of a dictator. He was elected, and El Salvador remains a democracy.
He was elected. Boom.
Good. Guess who was a dictator that you guys support? Maduro. Congrats on Maduro, dude.
Going back to the prompt of constitutional protections, even in the case of abortion, Supreme Court justices that were appointed by Republicans have not ruled that fetuses have constitutional protection of life. So on net, both parties have the same constitutional view in terms of the Supreme Court justices that they've actually appointed to the court.
Right, you're debating me. So
I know, but whether or not whose side actually better protects the Constitution.
Well, okay, Republicans.
I'm just saying, on your view, Republicans haven't. They haven't.
I might have to end this, guys. I didn't know it was
so-called constitutional right of life.
8:03 p.m. Sorry.
Not anything.
I like to get up early, rise and grind.
I see that you pushed your button. Which claim would you like to fact check?
I would like to fact check his claim that Republicans have not done anything to protect fetuses.
No, it's a constitutional right, is what he said, but you're still.
Yeah. The constitutional right of life of a fetus.
Which doesn't know.
Which doesn't exist.
I'm gonna go ahead and say
They're saying yes.
you guys are right. That you, I know you probably meant to say that, but I don't think you.
No,
She doesn't think they said
She
that.
doesn't think they said that.
Is it possible to rewind the tape?
Okay, Evan, you made the claim that Republicans have done nothing to protect the right of a fetus. The fact checkers have checked that, and the verdict is that is false. This claim is false. There is a well-documented body of evidence of Republican policymakers acting to legally protect fetuses in multiple states and at the federal effort. Evan, thank you. Return back to
Sorry,
the
buddy.
Someone tell me what the right of a fetus is. I would love the
Life.
fact checkers to explain what the right of a fetus is. And
Life,
how
dumbass.
the fact checkers for the fact checkers. The current score is 7-5, with liberals still in the lead. We're going to start with Mason, and your time starts now.
Good to see you again. Would you agree that Donald Trump has violated numerous court orders that specifically have tried to limit his executive power?
Yeah, I think he has done a couple of
Great.
things.
Which president would you say has violated more judicial orders, Joe Biden or Donald Trump?
I'm not actually entirely sure on that. So, I mean, my inclination would be Joe Biden, but I'm also aware of like preferences in my algorithm and different things like that.
Which ones has he violated?
Which court orders? That's a great question. I think with specifically the.
When I asked my cousin a question
But I think with
on IG, and instead of answering the question, he just sends me memes.
Specifically went against it.
He violated a court order, or did he comply when he tried to do federal student aid relief, and then the court said he didn't? Just to clarify your position.
That's a good question. I'm not entirely sure on that.
Okay.
But
Like, I know bros like
yeah,
sending
so
other
I'm
bros
not sure.
memes.
I think we could
But
get.
come
we could
on,
get
like,
into
if someone
big
asks you a question, at least
arguments
answer the
about
question.
Biden
Don't just
has done
ignore
more.
it and send a
I'm
meme.
glad that you can see that Donald Trump
and
has
to be
violated
honest-
orders, because he has. There's been
Well,
4,000.
You know I wasn't
Yeah,
asking him for
I
money or
don't
something
really
stupid like that. 'Cause I was
consider
gonna be
Trump to be a
like,
huge conservative,
No.
right? And so with
I was
those-
telling him my other
Well,
cousin
I mean, I think that's
was
just factually
just
true.
wanted to say, was just asking him
Yeah, so
his
I'm
current
not
whereabouts
like a
because they both
huge,
like to travel to
I
Colombia.
I voted. They want to fact check
We
me?
agree.
No,
So you guys don't like Donald Trump?
no. So I think there's a difference. So when we're talking about voting, right? I don't think voting is necessarily like
An
getting a
endorsement
valid
of somebody's character.
Right. It's just I think you're better than the opposing,
Right.
The opposition.
So here's the interesting thing about this debate, and
Sure.
you and I are both being very careful, so I think we're going to have a longer conversation. But I think that you've conceded that Donald Trump has violated constitutional orders. You can't think of a single one besides student aid relief for Joe Biden, yet you still say that the Democratic Party violates the Constitution more than the Republicans. And I think that this is indicative of like the way that most people craft their worldview is you come to conclusions first, and then you post hoc try to justify it by looking for different examples.
No, I mean that's one very specific area. It's
Yeah, but we're
largely
talking about the
hold on.
Constitution.
We're largely talking about constitutional rights. And one thing, one reason why I brought up abortion, because let's just grant my argument just for a second that the unborn are human beings. That would be a gross violation of rights. Would you agree with that? If I'm correct.
So nothing that Donald Trump violates can be comparable to Democrats because abortion.
Absolutely, yes. The 14th Amendment should apply to unborn human beings, right? And so if I'm correct, that is the
Let's grant that.
greatest
Abortion. What's next?
constitutional. We can go. Well, you're conceding abortion.
Sure, I concede abortion.
Well, great. I mean, I think the claim is won just based off of abortion alone. But
Right.
yeah, I mean, I think you could look at gun rights.
Okay,
Yeah.
which gun rights have been violated?
Well, let's see.
I mean, I think
In
you
Baltimore,
can
they're
look
banning
at,
Glocks.
Different, like
The most-
Let's do specifics.
different
So
policies.
anyway,
Yeah, I'm
Keep in
trying-
mind,
I'm
this is
trying to
his
find-
number 2 priority is gun rights, and he's
But
struggling.
that's
Well, it's-
which
no,
they're
it's
talking
a
federal,
example.
not state. So
It's not my number 2 priority.
Then what's your number
You
2
never-
priority
you never
after
asked
abortion?
that. As far as constitutional rights, well, it'd probably be free speech. Yeah.
Okay. I really think that the biggest concern here with the Trump administration is just a real disregard for judicial review. I mean, J.D. Vance verbatim said, let the courts try to enforce it if they disagree with these activist judges.
Sure.
So, you guys want to factor in that?
No,
we
I mean,
can't.
that's true. That's
Yeah, so I think that really is damaging when it comes to the reputation of a particular political party and their concern for the Constitution. Different branches of government should be able to check the constitutionality of another branch of government.
So yeah, the courts should for sure be able to check the administration.
We
That's
agree.
absolutely correct.
We agree.
That's just basic constitutionality.
So when
Yeah.
Trump is violating 4,400 court orders when it comes to his ICE asylum deportations, would you say that that's like very egregiously bad?
So how is he violating?
Lack of due process. So a lot of ICE agents that are going into homes without a search warrant, which is a violation of the Fourth Amendment, regardless of whether or not someone is a citizen. That is what the Constitution
Can you
guarantees.
repeat that again, please?
Yeah, no interruption.
Yeah, okay, sorry. Thank you, Matt Nuclear. I think that the lack of due process and the
All right, he
lack
deserved
of
that
search
one.
warrants is a clear violation of the Fourth Amendment. I think that even with some,
And you're saying the Fourth Amendment applies whether you're a citizen or not?
well, if we're going by the language of the Constitution's originalism, it says all persons. That's what the Bill of Rights says. So it doesn't say all
But
citizens. You can have a different.
interpretation of the Constitution is even that even applies to non-citizens.
So when you look at the way that the government is conducting itself, how are they supposed to know the citizenship status of people that they're breaking into? That's what these judges have ruled as lack of due process and lack of probable cause.
Sure.
Because if you don't know the citizenship status and you're going off of racial profiling or you're going off of hearsay, that is not a justified justification or a rational justification for them to be supporting these people.
Well, I certainly believe that.
All right. So Dominique, I see that you pushed your button. Very unsure about it. What claim?
I want to talk to my
We're allowed to
teammate.
talk.
Yeah.
We will not-
Before you press the button.
Which fact would you like to fact check? That ICE is violating due process by using metrics such as someone's ethnicity as a marker for.
It's not. That's wasn't the claim.
No, yeah,
But you asserted it there. Therefore, it is a claim.
Or even knowing the citizenship status of certain homes that they enter is a violation. That's what judges have had.
Just because it wasn't the main assertion doesn't mean it wasn't itself an assertion or
They do
claim.
not, though, say that
Wait, is this Dominique's fact check or is
they needed warrants.
real quick? Whose fact check is
You
this?
guys have talked the entire time, Tracy. Don't be condescending.
Before you press the button.
All right, Mason, you said that ICE violated due process by not knowing citizenship status of people before detainment or entering their homes.
Prerequisite.
Fact checkers have checked, and they say that this is true. This claim is largely accurate and well supported by numerous court rulings.
You need probable cause.
Uh-oh.
I cannot believe that
Ruh-roh.
right there. Because I've read that,
Oh.
and that's just totally.
It's okay. It's okay.
It's okay. They don't need search warrants.
Matt.
Professional
And
fact checker.
checking citizenship is not a prerequisite.
Daily Wire fact checker.
All right, it looks like none of the liberals have pushed their button. Are you guys afraid? What's going on
We
here?
believe in intellectual diversity.
They haven't made very many empirical.
That's bullshit.
claims.
Okay, well,
They just don't
Dominique,
wanna
we're gonna
give-
start with you,
They just
and
don't
the
want to
time
be proof.
starts now.
So the,
They just
I
don't want to
think
be
it's
disproven.
interesting. I don't think it's wrong, but it kind of flips the argumentation on its head by
They're
saying
debating strategically.
conservatives violate constitutional rights versus protecting those constitutional rights. So the question is who protects it better, not
Right.
who violates it.
Okay,
So,
so how do the Republicans protect free speech or gun laws better?
I would say like in Florida, for example, there's less regulations, so you have constitutional carry. You don't have to go through a lot of red tape. So I would say.
So
that
are you
that's
saying that blue states don't have
Example.
constitutional carry?
Some
well,
don't,
California
yes.
has constitutional open.
Some blue states do
All
not
right,
have
Hunter, I see
constitutional
that you
carry.
pushed your button. Please let us
I've
know.
only heard of
which one you
constitutional
want to
carry in
fact
red
check.
states, actually.
Specifically, that California does not have constitutional carry.
All right, fact
Also, I
check.
should note on the open carry thing, there was a recent court ruling that said that.
Open
that
carry,
falls on the
constitutional
same
carry,
line.
and concealed carry, all
We
three
were talking
different
about gun
things.
regulations, so I was talking about constitutional carry, which
Yeah, which California has.
All right, Dominique, you claim that California does not have constitutional carry.
I know they have concealed carry.
Fact checkers have come to a verdict, and that is true. California residents are required to have a permit to carry any firearm within state limits.
that's what I was talking about.
They should have known
That
California doesn't have
means
constitutional
Mason,
carry.
you're
This is one of the
out
most
this
restrictive
round.
states
Head back to the podium.
when it comes to gun
All right, the current
rights.
score is
No, they
8 to
don't.
6, with
Maryland
liberals
doesn't
still
have
in the lead,
constitutional
but
carry either.
Democrats
It's
are catching up.
another
The
very
time is up
restrictive
for this prompt.
blue
We're
state
gonna have to move on.
when it comes to gun rights.
All right, now
We
it's
got a
time
governor
for
who
the
just
final
banned
segment of
Glocks.
debate. The team in the lead will choose the final prompt. So, liberals, here are your options. Number 1, whose immigration policies are more effective, Democrats or Republicans? Number 2, whose presidential record is better, Joe Biden's
What
or
do you mean
Donald
by more
Trump's?
effective?
And number 3, has the best U.S. president of the 21st century been a Democrat or a Republican? So,
What do we
liberals,
mean
which
by
prompt
best?
will it be?
So do you want to do Trump?
So that's what I was thinking.
Okay, little
No,
ginger
Biden and
chips.
Trump. It doesn't specifically which presidential record.
She a little,
Joe Biden and Donald
She a
Trump.
little
I think they're probably going to go.
pudgy in the middle, though.
I think they're probably
She got a little bit of a
That's okay,
punch,
so let me
but
just take it. Yeah, they'll take it with foreign policy.
you could,
What do
you
you
know, bend it over
I'm
and
even second this format.
Really?
All right, liberals, have you chosen your prompt?
Our prompt is whose presidential record is better, Joe
She's like she's
When I
half a
wake up in
ham
Las
sandwich
Vegas,
away
I need the power of Old Spice.
from being sloppy looking though.
This
The
place
Republican
smells
chick,
good.
she can eat a ham sandwich and she'll still be okay.
Your wish has come true.
Obsession is now available to watch at home.
Damn, it's already available at home. That means I can watch it on my Stremio app if I want. I really don't. I'm not a horror person. Unless it's like a indie, like
Get your business
unless
up
it's
and
like an
running
overseas
from
horror
anywhere
film. I'm
with
not
the Shopify app.
into
Design
horrors
and
like
launch your
that.
store in
Except for
minutes.
like the big
Add products
slashers
with a
from
new-
like the 80s and 90s.
Tequila knowledge starts with agave. So listen to one.
Really, the 80s.
I've spent 8 years.
Joseph R. Biden or Donald Trump?
Oh, full name, Joseph. Okay. And each team now has to choose one final player for sudden death. So you guys can huddle up now and choose.
So Evan loves Joe Biden.
Yes, Avid is the dubious liberal of them all.
Like a game champ or something.
Yeah, the Republican chick, she has no cheeks. But I like it. I actually like them.
Please get that on
In case you didn't know, some brothers like flatbacks. I like flatbacks.
Will the final debaters from each team please take a seat?
Just because it's flatback don't mean they don't have hips.
It's gonna be a good showdown.
I don't need a badunkadunk. I'm not into the
Here's
badunkadunk.
how sudden death works. Each of you will get one
I like slim
uninterrupted
fit.
minute to make your opening
I like
argument.
flatback,
After
which
both
is- which
openings,
people
I'll
will call
place the
flatbacks,
checkmate
but I like
button
them slim
between you, and the open debate begins. From that moment on, the first person to hit the button stops the debate and triggers the final fact.
You not push the button? I
Once
push the
that
button.
is
Here's
pressed,
the-
sudden death is over. If your challenge is correct,
LLA to
you
go down
win the
the
round
hole.
and earn
You
your
wouldn't even
wager.
get that Tiny Toons
If your
reference.
challenge is wrong, you lose the round, forfeit your wager, and the other team gets the points. The team with the fewer points will speak first. Okay, I'll collect your wagers now. Thank you. Thank you. All right, we're going to start with Matt, and your time starts now.
All right, so I think that we're gonna have to specify this conversation a little bit more when we're talking about Donald Trump and Joe Biden. So we're gonna probably have like an area of specificity. We're really discussing policy and who did better. So I'm gonna start off with talking about foreign policy. So in reference to Trump, he obviously took out Maduro, brought him to America, made the government there obsequious with J.A.C. Rodriguez that is essentially now more open to investment, more open to freeing up Venezuela, et cetera, et cetera. In reference to the short-term conflict that existed, for example, basically like a blitz conflict that existed between Pakistan and India, where things could have really escalated. Pakistan nominated Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize. Furthermore, when it comes to something very important is rare earth minerals. In reference to Rwanda, the DRC, obviously Trump was able to get a short-term ceasefire between them and also get some concessions when it comes to rare earth minerals. When it comes to the conflict between Cambodia and Thailand, Trump was also able to get them.
I remember the Cambodia versus Thailand thing because all the little Thai chicks.
Nobel Peace Prize from specifically Cambodia.
Oh, my timeline talking about Cambodia's evil.
We saw
And a few Cambodians were like, no, fuck it. This Thailand started that shit.
Now, Evan, it's time for your one uninterrupted minute. Your time starts.
I was like, I'm neutral in this. I'm
So
Switzerland, baby,
glad
because
to
I
know
don't
about
know.
foreign policy because you're leaving out a pretty critical foreign policy decision by the Trump administration, and that was to engage in a war of choice and a war of aggression on Iran that got 13 U.S. servicemen killed. So Donald Trump, through a decision, not a decision that he had to make, but a deliberate decision, a decision that he was actually talked into by people like Bibi Netanyahu, the head of Mossad, on earlier this year. I think it was in February in the White House conference room, made that choice, got 13 U.S. servicemen killed over 1,600 Iranian civilians, and then also has created now inflation with the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, which is something that you would expect to happen when starting a war with Iran. Now inflation outpaces wage growth, and the inflation is global. So the global catastrophic consequences, according to organizations such as the World Food Program, is going to create millions of more people to be in sort of insecure.
All right, we're gonna pause you here. Your time is up. All right, now I'm gonna put the checkmate button in between you guys. Remember, this button can only be pressed once, so make sure you're right. No pressure.
No pressure.
All right, sudden death begins. We're gonna start
I
with
like
Matt.
I like
and your
this
time
host.
starts now.
Thanks. So you mentioned like a work choice. I think the majority of conflicts in America, obviously, a work choice. I think that when we engage in foreign policy or in foreign conflict, it's always of choice. The question really is about whether or not something necessary, something for the good of presidents, or for the good of
Would you
country,
agree?
good of morality.
Can I just
Hold on,
ask
I
you
just want to say
a
something else. You tried to imply that, like, well, he got 13 U.S. members killed. That's like me saying that, for example, FDR got hundreds of thousands of Americans killed, right? Or Truman got hundreds of thousands of Americans killed. I don't think that presidents go into war to get Americans killed. I think that presidents go into war to try to complete a geopolitical objective that they believe is moral and just.
Okay, so I want to circle back. Do you agree though that war should be a last resort?
I believe that yes. I think generally speaking, war we should try to do it.
And what is the objective of this war?
Well, the objective of this war obviously has been to be the depletion of the Iranian government's missile stockpile, their naval stockpile.
Do you believe that they've gotten rid of most of their missile stockpile?
No, that was my claim. My claim was that there was a depletion. And
there's
for example,
a
I wanted to go on to answer
how much of a depletion?
I want to go on to answer some of your.
Well, I'm asking you.
About
You said
so we also on
you
further
agree that
in furtherance of that, we've also bombed Natanz, Fordow, and Isfahan nuclear facilities in Iran,
Right.
and that has also depleted obviously the nuclear capacities to a certain extent. That's on top of destroying their destroyer in the Indian Ocean, so on and so forth.
You said at the beginning of this that you agreed with me that war should be a last resort to achieve objectives. One of the objectives you laid out.
Yes.
One of the objectives you laid out was degrading Iran's nuclear enrichment capabilities, and yet.
Nope, wrong.
Okay, so
I said like their nuclear capacity. There's different things that
nuclear capacity, and
right.
But
by destroying the facilities.
Right, but you would agree though that their nuclear capabilities were degraded prior to the JCPOA relative to when Donald Trump pulled out of the JCPOA. They enriched to 60% enrichment, which is closer to weapons grade uranium after Donald Trump pulled out of the JCPOA, and that would be a form of multilateral negotiations. In other words, diplomacy worked in limiting their nuclear enrichment more so than just pulling out of the JCPOA and engaging in hard sanctions.
So
you would agree though that's in fact
right. So
the case,
my argument that I gave was that it was multifaceted. We didn't go into this war to complete one objective. For example, Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, very much specified that the reason why we're going in now actually is because their missile stockpile is the largest in the Middle East, and then if we were to go in like later on to enforce something, there'd be a lot tougher. Hold on for a second. I let you go on for a second. Calm down. I let you go on for a second. I let you go on for a second. I let you go on for a second.
All right, go on, Matt.
Right. And so that is one of the issue that a lot of like anti-JCPOA people bring up is like one thing, which is nuclear weapons. I get that that's the biggest fear factor. That's the biggest thing mentioned by Iran. But Iran is a multifaceted, sophisticated threat. Not just nuclear weapons. The funding of proxy groups in obviously Yemen, in Gaza, the Houthis, for example, Hezbollah. All of these different groups create different effects and different wars that cost different countries expenditures. The Yemeni civil war, for example, killed thousands upon thousands of people in 2011, and that was heightened by Iran's support for obviously the Yemen.
And yet this war got zero concessions both on their missile capabilities and zero concessions on their funding of proxies.
You don't need concessions. You can use bomb shit.
So
you can just
no longer war is a last resort. We just ought to bomb them, right?
Right. So
killing 1,600 Iranian civilians, starting this war that has led to inflation now outpacing wage growth, inflation that has led to millions of more people in the global south being affected by acute food insecurity. Yeah, those are all things.
Quick question.
Yeah, and you've engaged in all of those things, and you haven't even achieved two of the objectives that you just laid out. And the third objective, when it came to nuclear capabilities, that was achieved more so through diplomacy than it was through war. I was
just quick question. You mentioned the 1,600 civilians. Just a
Yeah.
rhetorical question. I don't want to go on a tangent on it.
Mhm.
But you care about the lives of 1,600 civilians, right?
Yes.
Okay, so what happened between, for example, late December to early January, going through January, for example, in major cities like Tehran and Isfahan?
There were repressive and horrific crackdowns.
How many people, civilians died then, by the way?
I'm sure in the tens of thousands.
Oh, so a lot more. So why didn't you mention those tens of thousands? But only mention
because we're talking about Donald Trump and Joe Biden.
You care about those civilians, though, right?
I'm sorry, I'm not comparing the record of Ayatollah Khamenei versus.
Why
Donald
not?
Trump.
You don't care about the oppressing of civilians? You're elected. Your whole thing is social justice.
Because we're debating the prompt Donald Trump versus Joe Biden.
Still taking yours?
Every day.
Nature made to care for you every day.
Assassin's Creed Black Flag Resynced. Available now.
Yeah, but why does the music sound like Pirates of the Caribbean? Is that intentional? It probably is. But
I saw
people,
the opportunity to do
I'm not getting
something
paid to
at
say
a
this.
very
University
low
of the
cost
People
that was
is now
still a high
regionally
caliber
accredited.
educational experience and would give
So
you a real degree. That was
you
very
might want to
attractive.
think of that if you're trying to get back to school or you've never been to school.
Flexibility is one of your people's features.
We mentioned civilians being killed.
So Donald Trump.
Care about that.
Yeah. So Joe Biden did not make a decision. They got 13 U.S. servicemen killed, 1,600 additional.
How many
So
were
you think
killed during
if
the fallout?
you think it's so
How many were
horrific,
killed during the fallout of Afghanistan?
if you think it's so horrific
Exactly.
for tens of thousands of Iranian civilians
I
to
do.
be massacred by their own government,
Right.
why don't you think it's horrific when thousands of or hundreds of Iranian civilians are killed by the United States military?
Okay.
Do you think it was horrific when a U.S. Tomahawk missile struck a girls' school in Manab, Iran, and Donald Trump
Right.
can't even admit fault for that? He attempted to suggest that the U.S. Tomahawk missile might have been from one of our adversaries.
Right, so can I respond to that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so during war, there's something called civilian casualties during conflict.
Oh my
And so in
God.
every single war, laugh it up.
Yeah, and
give me the
during-
emotional-
yeah, and
let me,
during
hold on, let me
uprisings,
respond,
there's
let me respond,
casualties
let me respond, please. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Well, I think there's a difference between, like, for example, you know that, at least you got it right, Manab, Iran, specifically a coastal city in Iran, that school was right next to what? And on what day, by the way?
Okay. What?
So right next to a
you're
naval
not-
base,
you're not actually-
right next to a naval base, and it was
We
actually
don't
on
have
Saturday.
schools on bases in the United
Can I
States.
finish?
Do we not
Can I
have?
finish?
Do we have
Can I
schools on
finish?
bases in
So
the
I'm
United
gonna
States?
add context to what I just said as well.
So it's a yes
So
or no
one is
question.
the
Do we
coastal
have
city.
do we
Calm
have
down,
do we have
calm down,
schools
calm
on
down,
bases in the
calm
United
down,
States?
calm down. So I'm adding
You're
context to what
gonna
actually
refuse
happened.
to answer this
Because I
question.
think
by
that
the
when
way.
we're talking about
Yeah, you're
civilians
gonna
dying
refuse
during
to answer the
conflict,
question.
Because you didn't let him
Gotta
finish.
be back and forth here.
Well,
So I
it's a
think
yes
when
or
we're
no.
talking about civilians dying during conflict, an important thing that we should focus on is the intent. Is the government that is actually conducting these airstrikes trying to mitigate civilian harm, or are they being negligent? So the factors were not only that it was obviously right next to a naval
Negligence
base,
horrific.
and on top of that, you're interrupting me again, right? It was also on a Saturday, so there was also like cultural factors on whether or not on why they would think that there probably isn't a school day, right? Because in America we typically don't have school days on Saturdays, right?
Oh,
Would you agree?
Wait, so,
Right, so-
the negligence of these people not knowing whether or not there's
Yeah, cultural
children in a
happens.
school in Iran
Yeah,
on a
wars
Saturday.
aren't perfect.
Yeah,
That's kinda how
well,
wars work.
yeah.
Name a single war without accidental civilian casualties.
Yeah, well,
Or,
that,
for example,
this
friendly
is
fire
why,
happening.
but this is why, circling back, why war has to be a last resort. And you can't even demonstrate that the United States has achieved any of its
You
war
haven't
objectives.
responded.
So
I
the
have
United
actually.
States,
Depletion of the
Somebody
missile-
press
how
that
much-
button.
How much
That
of
is
the
not-
missile?
I'm not going to put a number.
Yeah,
on it.
exactly.
Press that button.
So if one missile was depleted,
Somebody press the button.
Is that considered a depletion?
Press the goddamn button.
One missile was
Can I
depleted.
respond?
How
Can I
many?
respond?
Give me an
Can I respond?
estimate. Give me a
Can I
percentage estimate.
If I give you a percentage, will you estimate it? Estimates over 50%.
Okay.
Fact check it.
Press button.
Evan, so I see that you pushed the button in sudden death. This is serious. All right, what claim would you like to fact check?
Push the
U.S.
button.
classified intel reports, as reported by the New York Times,
No, just say what you're saying.
suggest that 70%
What's
of
the
Iran's
claim,
missiles
though?
My claim was that Iran's missile stockpile has been depleted
by
hold
50%.
on. By more, I specifically said more
Okay.
than 50%.
Good. Okay.
Boom. That's
Good.
it.
Okay. Mine is that they maintain 70% of their missile stockpile, as reported by the New York Times, according to a
You
classified-
can't ask them to fact check
classified-
yourself,
Okay, we'll see.
dude. You gotta ask them to
And
fact check
that's
your
according to
opponent.
a
Okay, we'll
classified
see.
report
Let
out of the
them
New York
find
Times.
it. Let them
I'm
find
just giving them where they can look to find the
You
information.
can't tell them where to
For the
look.
fact checkers, that's their job.
Right.
Your job to play for your home team.
Classify things.
I mean,
If you want to-
I'd rather them be correct, personally.
The New York Times might have said that, and it might be wrong.
Well, if it's classified FBI report, that's from the government.
So you have to look at, right,
The FBI
classified.
could be wrong. I don't know.
All right, Matt, during our sudden death debate, you claimed that Iran's missile stockpile has decreased more than 50% since the start of the war.
How do we
Fact
actually know?
checkers have checked. They've come to a verdict. And that is a false claim. Reports state Iran's missile stockpile has decreased by at best 50% since the start of the war. Other estimates put it much lower.
50%. I mean, that's like, are we going to end it on that?
The
Yes.
debate is over. The facts have been checked. And the final score is in. Before sudden death, the score was 8-6, with liberals in the lead. The liberals wagered all 8 of their points on the sudden death.
Oh, damn, word?
And the conservatives wagered 3 points. Since the liberals won, the final score is now 16-3. So congratulations to the liberals. You are today's checkmate champions. To both teams, thank you for debating.
That was
presenting
actually-
your facts.
Yeah,
and
this actually
putting
was
your
good.
place
This
to
wasn't
the
too
test.
rage baity like some of
Comcast Rose,
Jubilee's
until
other
next time, check your facts.
videos.
Get checked.
This was good.
Thanks for watching.
This was good.
Congrats.
Good job. Good job.
All right. Good job.
Yeah. Good debate.
Still killed you. Good job.
Excuse you.
What are you doing?
Nice to meet you too.
Cascade
Oh,
Complete has the
they about to
proper
go
bond
hang
to
out?
remove greasy
Somebody
residue,
gonna hit
nothing
them
behind
gingers.
but
Them little
shine.
gingers.
My parents didn't finish college, and I was the first
Little
person
ginger
to
cheeks.
go to college.
You know liberal
so
liberal
being
women
able
are
to finish
easy.
and,
Let me stop.
and say that I did that was
All right.
completely worth it.
I'm done, guys. Peace.